At our weekly family dinner, my mother-in-law looked at my 8-year-old and said, "She's not as pretty as her cousins. Some kids are just disappointments." My daughter stopped breathing for a second. I smiled and said, "Keep talking. You have about 3 hours left to run your mouth." And 3 hours later, the meatloaf sat in the center of Barbara's dining table like a centerpiece no one wanted to admire. Steam rose from it in lazy spirals, carrying the scent of overcooked ground beef and too much onion powder. Derek Wyatt cut a piece for his daughter Ellie, placed it on her plate alongside a scoop of lumpy mashed potatoes, and watched as she poked at it with her fork. "Eat up, sweetheart," he said quietly. Ellie looked up at him with those wide hazel eyes, Leah's eyes, and gave him a small nod. She was 8 years old, rail-thin, with brown hair pulled into 2 neat braids that dear Eric had learned to do from a YouTube video 3 years ago. She wore a yellow sundress with daisies on it, the kind Leah used to pick out for her. Barbara sat at the head of the table, her gray hair pinned back in a tight bun that made her face look even more severe than usual. She'd set the table with her good china, the kind with the faded roses around the rim, and the overhead light buzzed faintly, casting everything in a harsh yellowish glow. Dear Eric's younger brother Tom sat across from him already halfway through his second helping while Tom's wife Jennifer picked at her salad and avoided eye contact with everyone. This was the routine. Every Sunday evening, Derek drove the 20 minutes from his house to Barbara's ranch-style home in the quiet part of Crestwood, North Carolina, because that's what Leah had asked him to do. "Take care of my mother," she'd whispered in the hospital, her hand trembling in his. "Promise me," he promised. For 3 years, he kept that promise. "How's school going, Ellie?" Jennifer asked, her voice bright and artificial. "It's good," Ellie said softly. "We're learning about fractions." "That's wonderful," Jennifer said, though her attention had already drifted back to her phone. Tom shoveled another fork full of meatloaf into his mouth. "This is great, Mom. You still got it." Barbara didn't smile. She was watching Ellie with that expression dear Eric had come to recognize over the months. A flatness in her eyes, a tightness around her mouth. It was the look she reserved for things that disappointed her. "Your cousins were here last weekend," Barbara said suddenly, her voice cutting through the murmur of conversation. "Emily and Rachel, such beautiful girls. Emily's already won 2 beauty pageants this year." Dear Eric felt his jaw tighten. He set his fork down slowly. "That's nice," he said evenly. "They're smart, too." Barbara continued, still looking at Ellie. "Emily's reading at a 6th grade level. And Rachel plays piano. She's very talented." Ellie's shoulders had started to curl inward, making her look even smaller in her chair. "Ellie's doing great in school," dear Eric said, his voice firm. "Her teacher says she's one of the top students in her class." Barbara waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, I'm sure she tries." The room went quiet except for the buzz of that overhead light. Tom cleared his throat uncomfortably. Jennifer suddenly became very interested in her water glass. Dear Eric watched his daughter's face. Ellie was staring down at her plate now, her hands folded in her lap, her body language screaming what she couldn't say out loud. "I want to disappear." "She's not as pretty as her cousins," Barbara said flatly, as if she were commenting on the weather. "Some kids are just disappointments." The word hung in the air like smoke. Dear Eric felt something crack inside his chest. Not break. He broke in 3 years ago when Leah died. This was different. This was the sound of the last thread of patience snapping. He lifted his head slowly and looked at Barbara. Really looked at her, at this woman he'd paid for, supported, enabled, all because his wife had loved her and asked him to take care of her. This woman who had never once said, "Thank you," never once acknowledged what he'd sacrificed, never once showed an ounce of warmth to the granddaughter who'd lost her mother. Dear Eric smiled. It was a careful smile, controlled and practiced. The kind he used in business meetings when someone was about to get fired and didn't know it yet. "Keep talking, Barbara," he said calmly. His voice was quiet, almost pleasant. "You've got about 3 hours left to run your mouth," Tom laughed nervously. "Derek, come on, man." 3 hours, Derek repeated, still smiling. He reached over and gently placed his hand on Ellie's shoulder. "Finish your dinner, sweetheart. We're leaving soon." Barbara's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" Dear Eric didn't answer. He took another bite of meatloaf, chewed slowly, and let the silence stretch out. Jennifer had gone pale. Tom was looking between Derek and Barbara like he was watching a tennis match. "You can't seriously be upset," Barbara said. "I'm just being honest. The girl needs to know." "Her name," Dear Eric interrupted, his voice dropping lower, "is Ellie. And you just called my daughter a disappointment to her face." "Oh, for heaven's sake." Dear Eric stood up. The chair scraped against the linoleum floor loud in the sudden quiet. Come on, I'll get your jacket. Ellie didn't need to be told twice. She slid out of her chair and hurried toward the coat rack by the door. You're being ridiculous, Barbara said. But there was something uncertain in her voice now. I was just 3 hours, Derek said again. He pulled his car keys from his pocket. That's how long you have left to enjoy the life I've been paying for. He walked out without looking back. The drive home was quiet except for the hum of the engine and the occasional rush of air as other cars passed them on the highway. Street lights swept over the windshield in steady pulses. White, yellow, like a heartbeat. Dear Eric kept his hands at 10 and 2, his breathing controlled, his mind already making calculations. In the rear view mirror, he could see Ellie curled up in her booster seat, her eyes closed. She wasn't asleep. He could tell by the way her eyelids fluttered, but she was pretending to be. And he let her have that. The anger hadn't faded. It sat in his chest like a hot coal, steady and constant. But Dear Eric had learned a long time ago how to use anger, how to let it fuel him instead of control him. 3 years. 3 years of bending over backward for Barbara. 3 years of writing checks and making sacrifices and gritting his teeth through her casual cruelty. He paid her car note every month, $387 like clockwork. He'd covered her supplemental health insurance when Medicare wasn't enough, $240 a month. He'd contributed $4,000 toward her knee surgery last year when she'd claimed she couldn't afford it. He'd send her help. Money every few months, $1,500 here, $300 there. Whenever she called with some crisis or another, and for what? So she could call his daughter a disappointment. Dear Eric's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He glanced in the rear view mirror again. Ellie had opened her eyes now. She was staring out the window at the passing trees, her expression blank. Daddy, she said quietly. Yes, sweetheart. Am I pretty? Dear Eric felt that crack in his chest widen. He pulled off at the next exit, not their usual route home, and turned into the empty parking lot of a closed grocery store. He put the car in park, unbuckled his seat belt, and turned around to face her. Look at me, yell. She did. Those hazel eyes were brimming with tears. Now ooh, he said firmly, are beautiful. You're smart. You're kind. You're everything your mom and I ever hoped for. He reached back and squeezed her small hand. And anyone who says otherwise is wrong. Do you understand me? But Grandma said, Grandma, Derek said slowly, is a bitter, unhappy person who takes her misery out on everyone around her. That's not about you. That's about her. Ellie sniffled. Are we going back next Sunday? No, ever. Derek paused. He thought about Leah. About that promise he'd made. Take care of my mother. But Leah had never known how Barbara would treat Ellie. Leah had died. Believing her mother was just difficult. Not cruel. If Leah had seen what happened tonight, if she'd heard Barbara call their daughter a disappointment, she would have been the first one out the door. No, Dear Eric said again. Not ever. He'd kept his promise to a dead woman long enough. It was time to keep his promise to the living one sitting in the back seat. Monday morning came with the kind of crystalline clarity that follows a major decision. Dear Eric woke at 6, made coffee, got Ellie ready for school, and dropped her off with a hug that lasted longer than usual. Then he drove to his office, a small accounting firm, where he was a partner, closed his door, and pulled up his laptop. First, he opened his banking app. Barbara's car payment was set to autodraft on the 15th of every month. Derek navigated to the scheduled payment section and hit cancel. The confirmation popped up immediately. Payment canceled. Next, the supplemental health insurance. He called the insurance company, navigated through the phone tree, and finally reached a representative. I need to remove a covered person from my policy, he said. Sure thing. Can I have the policy number? He rattled it off. The representative typed something, then asked, and who are you removing? Barbara Hutchkins. Okay. And when would you like this to take effect? Immediately. All right, sir. I've made that change. She'll receive a notification in the mail within 5 to 7 business days. Perfect. Thank you. He hung up and moved on to the next item, the knee surgery. Barbara's surgeon had set up a payment plan and Derek had been covering it $120 a month for the past 8 months. He called the billing department. I need to cancel my automatic payments for account number 77432B. Let me pull that up. Okay, I see it. Can I ask why you're canceling? The patient needs to handle her own finances going forward. Understood. I'll cancel the remaining payments. The balance will revert to the account holder. That worked for me. The last item was the monthly help money. That was easy. He simply deleted the recurring transfer from his account to hers. When he was finished, Dear Eric sat back in his chair and stared at the computer screen. 3 years of financial support gone in 30 minutes. He felt no guilt, no second thoughts, just a clean, sharp sense of closure. He opened his phone and typed out a message. Barbara, going forward, you'll need to handle your own finances. My responsibility is to Ellie, not to you. Don't contact me again. He hit send. Then he blocked her number. His phone rang 6 seconds later. A call from an unknown number. He let it ring. It went a voicemail. 2 minutes later, another call. Same thing. By noon, she tried 11 times from different numbers. Dear Eric ignored every single one. At 3:15, he picked Ellie up from school. She climbed into the car with her backpack and a drawing she'd made in art class. A house with a big sun over it and 2 stick figures holding hands. That's us, she said, showing it to him proudly. It's perfect, he said, and meant it. That night, they ordered pizza and watched a movie. And for the first time in 3 years, Dara didn't spend a single second worrying about Barbara's needs. She'd won a war. Now she had won. 2 weeks passed in relative peace. Ellie's smile came back little by little. She laughed more. She drew more pictures. Dear Eric started sleeping through the night again, no longer waking at 2 a.m. with a nagging guilt that he should check his phone to see if Barbara needed something. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon, Derek came home from work to find Barbara standing on his front porch. She was wearing a navy blue pantsuit that looked like she'd borrowed it from someone else. Too big in the shoulders, too long in the sleeves. Her hair was down for once, framing her face in a way that made her look older and somehow more fragile, but her eyes were hard. We need to talk, she said. Derek closed his car door slowly. No, we don't. Yes, she insisted, stepping forward. We do. You can't just cut me off like that, Derek. I have bills. I have responsibilities. I don't care what you need. Barbara blinked. Excuse me. You heard me. Dear Eric walked past her toward his front door, keys in hand. You insulted my daughter in front of everyone. You called her a disappointment. I was trying to motivate her by tearing her down. Derek turned to face her. What kind of motivation is that? She needs to know that life isn't easy, Barbara said defensively. That she has to work harder than other kids if she wants to succeed. She's 8 and she needs to be prepared. She needs, Derek said, his voice dropping to something cold and final, to be around people who love her. You're not one of those people. Barbara, his face hardened. You're being irrational. You're emotional. You're making decisions based on anger instead of logic. I'm making decisions, Derek corrected. Based on what's best for my daughter, which is something I should have done 3 years ago. Leo would be ashamed of you. The words hit like a slap. Dear Eric felt his chest tighten, but he didn't flinch. Didn't look away. Leah, he said quietly, would be ashamed of you for treating her daughter the way you have. Barbara opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You're being cruel. No, Dear Eric said, I'm being a parent. Now get off my property. Barbara's expression shifted. Then the false vulnerability dropped away, replaced by something sharper. Something calculating. You're not stable, she said slowly. You're raising a little girl alone. You're clearly struggling. Anyone can see that. Dear Eric felt a cold thread of warning run down his spine. What are you saying, Barbara? Straighten her shoulders. I'm saying that Ellie deserves better than this. Better than an unstable single father who flies off the handle over nothing. She deserves stability, love, structure. She is all of that. Does she? Barbara tilted her head. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're failing her. I think a judge might agree. Dear Eric stared at her. You're threatening me. I'm stating facts. Barbara said. Ellie would be better off with me. I have time. I have experience. I have a stable home environment. Dear Eric laughed once. The sound was harsh and humorless. You have a home environment I paid for that you can no longer afford. I'll manage. No. Dear Eric said, you won't, and you definitely won't have Ellie. Barbara's face twisted into something ugly. We'll see about that. She turned and walked down the porch steps, her footsteps sharp against the concrete. Dear Eric watched her get in her car, a Honda Civic that he'd been paying for until 2 weeks ago, and drive away. He stood there for a long moment, breathing slowly, forcing his heart rate to settle. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Harland and Associates. A crisp voice answered. I need to speak with Dana Harland, Derek said. Tell her it's Derek Wyatt. Tell her it's urgent. The law office of Harland and Associates occupied the second floor of a brick building downtown, sandwiched between a coffee shop and a real estate agency. Derek sat in the waiting room, his leg bouncing slightly, while smooth jazz played softly from hidden speakers. The walls were decorated with framed degrees and photographs of Dana Harlan shaking hands with various local politicians and community leaders. Mr. Wyatt, a woman in her mid-40s, appeared in the doorway. She had short dark hair, sharp features, and a kind of direct gaze that made Derek feel like she could read his tax returns from across the room. "I'm Dana Harlan. Come on back." Her office was tidy and efficient. 2 walls were lined with law books. The third had a large window overlooking Main Street, and the fourth displayed more framed credentials. She gestured to a chair across from her desk, and Derek sat. "You sat on the phone." "It was urgent," Dana said, pulling out a legal pad. "Tell me what's going on." Derek told her everything: the dinner, the insult, the years of financial support, Barbara's visit to his house, and her threat about custody. Dana listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes. Her expression neutral. When he finished, she set down her pen and looked at him directly. "How serious do you think she is?" "Very," Derek said. "She meant every word." Dana nodded slowly. "Okay, first thing you need to understand, custody cases involving grandparents are real and they can be difficult. She'll likely file a petition claiming you're unfit, that she can provide a better environment, that Ellie's welfare is at stake. But that's insane. I'm her father. I've taken care of her since Leah died. I've done everything right." "I believe you," Dana said. "But belief isn't evidence. If Barbara files a petition, we'll need to prove in court that you're fit and that she's not the better option." She leaned forward. "So, my question is, can you prove it?" "Prove what?" "That you've been supporting her financially? That you're a good father? That she's been the problem, not you?" Derek felt a surge of confidence. "Yes, I kept everything. Bank statements, receipts, cancelled checks. I have documentation going back 3 years showing every payment I made on her behalf." Dana's expression shifted slightly. "Approval maybe, or relief." "Good. That's very good. What about witnesses? People who can testify to your character as a father. Ellie's teacher, her pediatrician, the parents of her friends from school." "Perfect. And witnesses who saw Barbara's behavior toward Ellie." Derek hesitated. "My brother and his wife were at the dinner. They heard what she said. Will they testify?" I don't know. They might not want to get involved." Dana made a note. "We'll work on that. What about the dinner itself? Did you record it?" Derek felt his stomach sink. "No." "Okay." Dana tapped her pen against the pad. "Here's what's likely to happen. She'll file the petition within the next week or 2. You'll be served with papers. Then we'll have a preliminary hearing where a judge will determine if there's enough cause to proceed. If the judge thinks her claims have merit, we'll move to a full custody hearing. And if she wins, she won't," Dana said firmly. "But we need to be prepared. I'll draft a response to her petition as soon as we receive it. In the meantime, I want you to gather every piece of documentation you have. Bank records, medical records, school records, photos, emails, text messages, anything that shows you're responsible, involved parent. I can do that. One more thing," Dana said, "do not engage with her. If she contacts you, don't respond. Don't argue. Don't defend yourself. Everything from here on out goes through me." Derek nodded. "Understood." He left the office feeling simultaneously better and worse. Better because he had representation, worse because the situation was now officially real. The petition arrived 5 days later. Derek found it tucked inside a manila envelope that had been left on his doorstep by a process server. He opened it standing in his kitchen, Ellie at school, the house quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. Petition for emergency custody. Barbara Hutchkins, petitioner versus Derek Wyatt, responded. His eyes scanned the document. Each line felt like a punch. Petitioner alleges that respondent is emotionally unfit to care for the minor child. Petitioner alleges that respondent is financially irresponsible and has failed to maintain stable housing and employment. Petitioner alleges that respondent exhibits erratic and threatening behavior, creating an unsafe environment for the minor child. Petitioner requests temporary custody pending a full hearing. Derek read it twice, then a third time. The lies were so blatant, so absurd that part of him wanted to laugh, but another part, the part that had watched Leah die and knew how quickly life could fall apart, felt a spike of genuine fear. He called Dana immediately. "I got the petition," he said. "I'll be there in an hour. Don't do anything until I arrive." She showed up with a leather briefcase and a grim expression. They sat at his kitchen table, the petition spread out between them. "This is aggressive," Dana said. "She's claiming you're unstable, broke, and dangerous. She's asking for emergency custody, which means she wants Ellie placed with her immediately while the case is pending. Can she do that? A judge could grant it if they believe there was an immediate risk to Ellie's safety. But based on what you've told me and what I'm seeing here, that's unlikely. She pulled out her own legal pad. Let's go through this point by point. She claims you're financially irresponsible. Can you prove otherwise? Derek pulled out his laptop and opened his banking records. I have 6 months of pay-ups. My mortgage is paid on time every month. Utilities never late. I have a retirement account. College savings for Ellie emergency fund. Perfect. She claims you're emotionally unstable. Witnesses? Like I said, Ellie's teacher can testify. So can her doctor. I can get letters from neighbors if needed. Do it. Get as many as possible. Dana made notes. She also claims you threatened her. Did you? Derek thought back to that night on his porch. I told her to get off my property. That's it. Good. Stick to that story. Dana flipped the page. Now about her claims that she can provide a better environment. You said you were paying for her car, insurance, medical bills. Yes. All of it. And you stopped 2 weeks ago. Correct. Dana smiled slightly. So, she's claiming she can provide stability while simultaneously relying on you to pay her bills. That's a contradiction we can exploit. She closed her notebook. Here's what we're going to do. We'll file a response denying all her allegations and countering with evidence of your fitness as a parent. We'll also include your documentation showing that you've been supporting her financially, which undercuts her claim of stability. The preliminary hearing is in 10 days. We'll be ready. Derek felt some of the tension ease from his shoulders. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Dana said. This is just the beginning. The next week passed in a blur of paperwork and preparation. Derek gathered everything Dana asked for. 3 years of bank statements highlighted to show payments made to Barbara. Copies of Ellie's report cards, all A's and B's. A letter from her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, describing Derek as extremely involved and supportive. A letter from Ellie's pediatrician confirming she was healthy, well cared for, and showed no signs of neglect or abuse. Character references from 2 neighbors and the father of Ellie's best friend. Photographs of Ellie at her birthday parties, school events, soccer games, all showing a happy, healthy child. Dana organized everything into a binder with color-coded tabs. This, she said, holding it up is how we win. The preliminary hearing took place in the Crestwood County Courthouse, a stately building with marble floors and high ceilings that made every footstep echo. Derek arrived early with Dana. Both of them dressed in business attire. They sat at the respondent's table, and Derek tried to slow his breathing. Barbara entered 10 minutes later with her attorney, a middle-aged man in an ill-fitting suit, who introduced himself as Roger Pruitt. Barbara wore a tasteful gray dress and pearl earrings. Her hair pulled back, her expression serene. She looked like someone's kindly grandmother. Derek felt a flash of anger. All rise, the bailiff announced. The Honorable Judge Patricia Moreno presiding. Judge Moreno was a woman in her 60s with silver hair and reading glasses perched on her nose. She took her seat, reviewed some documents, and looked up. This is a preliminary hearing regarding the petition for emergency custody filed by Barbara Hutchkins. Mr. Pruitt, you may present your client's case. Pruitt stood. Your Honor, my client is deeply concerned for the welfare of her granddaughter, Ellie Wyatt. She has witnessed firsthand the instability in Mr. Wyatt's home. He is emotionally volatile, financially struggling, and has exhibited threatening behavior toward Mrs. Hutchkins. Derek's jaw clenched. Dana put a hand on his arm, a silent reminder to stay calm. Mrs. Hutchkins' suit continued has been a stabilizing force in Ellie's life since her daughter's tragic passing. She has experience raising children. She has a stable home. She can provide the love and structure this child desperately needs. Judge Moreno made note. And what evidence do you have of Mr. Wyatt's alleged instability? Mrs. Hutchkins will testify to his erratic behavior, Your Honor. Additionally, she has financial records showing that Mr. Wyatt has been unable to maintain consistent support for even his own family. I see. Judge Moreno turned to Dana. Miss Harlan. Dana stood smoothly. Your Honor, the petitioner's claims are not only unfounded, they're contradicted by the evidence. Mr. Wyatt is a successful accountant with a stable income, a mortgage he's never missed, and a documented history of excellent parenting. We have letters from Ellie's teacher and pediatrician, both of whom attest to his fitness as a father and the allegations of threatening behavior. Unfounded, Dana said. Mr. Wyatt asked Mrs. Hutchkins to leave his property after she appeared uninvited. That is not a threat. That's a boundary. Judge Moreno looked at Barbara. Mrs. Hutchkins, can you provide specific examples of threatening behavior? Barbara stood, her voice shaky but clear. He told me I had 3 hours to run my mouth. He was aggressive. Intimidating. I was afraid. Derek felt his hands curl into fists under the table. Context. Your Honor, Dana interjected. Mrs. Hutchins had just insulted Ellie, Mr. Wyatt's 8-year-old daughter, by calling her a disappointment. His response was restrained considering the circumstances. Do you have proof of this alleged insult? Judge Moreno asked. Witnesses. Dana said Mr. Wyatt's brother and sister-in-law were present. Witt stood again. Your Honor, even if that's true, it doesn't justify. I'll decide what it justifies, Mr. Pruitt. Judge Moreno looked down at her notes. Mrs. Hutchins, you claim Mr. Wyatt is financially irresponsible. Can you provide documentation? Barbara glanced at Pruitt, who nodded. Your Honor, my client has been assisting Mr. Wyatt financially since his wife's death. She's been helping with bills, groceries. That's a lie, Derek said before he could stop himself. Dana shot him a warning look. Judge Moreno raised an eyebrow. Mr. Wyatt, you'll have your chance to speak. I apologize, Your Honor, Derek said. But it's important, you know. I've been supporting her, not the other way around. And you have proof. Dana opened the binder. We have 3 years of bank records showing regular payments from Mr. Wyatt to Mrs. Hutchins. Car payments, insurance premiums, medical expenses. We're talking thousands of dollars. Judge Moreno held out her hand. Dana passed over a stack of highlighted statements. The judge reviewed them in silence for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she looked up. Mrs. Hutchins, these records show Mr. Wyatt making consistent payments to you. Can you explain? Barbara's face had gone pale. He wanted to help. I didn't ask, but you accepted. Well, yes, but and you're now claiming that you're in a better financial position to care for this child than the man who's been supporting you. Witt jumped in. Your Honor, my client's financial situation has stabilized. As of when? Judge Moreno asked sharply. Silence. The judge set down the papers. I'm not seeing sufficient evidence of immediate danger to warrant emergency custody. However, given the seriousness of the allegations, I'm ordering a full custody hearing to take place in 3 weeks. Both parties will have the opportunity to present their full cases at that time. Until then, custody remains with Mr. Wyatt. Barbara looked like she'd been slapped. Derek felt a rush of relief, so intense he almost sagged in his chair. Court adjourned. As they filed out, Barbara shot Derek a look of pure venom. He met her gaze steadily, unflinching. Outside on the courthouse steps, Dana turned to him. That went as well as we could have hoped, but don't celebrate yet. The real fight is in 3 weeks. Derek nodded. I understand. Give me those witness statements. And Derek, she looked at him seriously. Whatever you do, stay away from her. Don't give her any ammunition. I won't. He drove home, picked up Ellie from the neighbor who'd been watching her, and made dinner. They ate macaroni and cheese at the kitchen table, and Ellie talked about her day, about the frog they'd found on the playground, about how she'd gotten a gold star on her spelling test. Derek listened, responded, smiled in all the right places. But part of his mind was already 3 weeks ahead, preparing for the next battle. Barbara wasn't going to stop. Neither was he. The 3 weeks between hearings moved like sludge. Every day felt stretched thin, like Derek was walking through water. You went to work, picked Ellie up from school, made dinner, helped with homework, tucked her into bed. Normal routines. But underneath it all was a constant hum of anxiety. On Wednesday of the second week, Dana called. We have a problem, she said without preamble. Derek's stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Barbara filed a complaint with Child Protective Services. For a moment, Derek couldn't speak. She did what? She called CPS and claimed you're leaving Ellie alone. That you yell constantly that Ellie's afraid of you. It's all garbage, but they're required to investigate. When a caseworker will be at your house tomorrow at 4:00 p.m. be ready, Derek's mind raced. What I need to do? Be yourself, Dana said. Answer their questions honestly. Let them see your home. Let them talk to Ellie. They're professionals. They'll see through Barbara's lies. But Derek, this is serious. If CPS finds any validity to her claims, it could impact the custody case. Understood. That night, Derek cleaned the house from top to bottom. Not because it was dirty. He kept it clean anyway, but because he needed something to do with his hands. He scrubbed the kitchen counters until they gleamed. Vacuumed every room twice, organized Ellie's toys, made sure there was fresh food in the fridge, and nothing expired in the pantry. The next afternoon, at exactly 4:00 p.m., the doorbell rang. The caseworker was a woman in her 30s named Linda Morrison. She had tired eyes and carried a worn leather bag. Mr. Wyatt? Yes, come in. She stepped inside, her gaze sweeping the living room. Dear Eric saw a take in the clean floors. The organized bookshelf, the photos on the wall, pictures of Ellie and Leah, pictures of Ellie at various ages, smiling and healthy. Thank you for making time to meet with me, Linda said, pulling out a clipboard. I understand this is stressful, but I need to ask you some questions and take a look around. Is Ellie here? She's in her room. I can get her in a moment. First, let's talk. They sat at the kitchen table. Linda clicked her pen. I've received a report alleging that you leave your daughter unsupervised, that there's frequent shouting in the home and that Ellie has expressed fear of you. Can you address these allegations? Dear Eric took a breath. Stay calm. Be factual. None of that is true. I never leave Ellie alone. If I'm at work, she's at school or with a babysitter. I don't yell at her. And she's not afraid of me. Who watches her when you're not available? My neighbor, Mrs. Chun. She's a retired teacher. I can give you your contact information. Please do. Linda made a note in your work schedule. I'm an accountant. I work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. I pick Ellie up from school every day at 3:30. And on weekends, we're together. We go to the park, do errands, spend time at home. Linda nodded, writing, Can I see Ellie's room? Of course. He led her down the hallway. Ellie's room was painted a soft lavender. There was a twin bed with a purple comforter, a bookshelf overflowing with books, a desk with her school supplies neatly arranged. Drawings covered one wall. Rainbows, flowers, stick figure families. Linda looked around carefully. Does Ellie have her own space? Yes, this is hers. And you maintain it like this. Or does she? We both do. I help her keep it clean. Linda made another note. Can I speak with Ellie now? Yes. Dear Eric walked to the doorway. Elle, can you come out here for a minute? Ellie appeared, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Her eyes went wide when she saw Linda. Hi, Ellie. Linda said gently. My name is Linda. I'm here to make sure you're happy and safe. Is it okay if I ask you a few questions? Ellie looked at Derek. He nodded encouragingly. It's okay, sweetheart. Just tell the truth. They sat in the living room. Linda asked Ellie simple questions. How she liked school, what she did for fun, if she had friends. Ellie answered quietly but clearly. Do you feel safe at home, Ellie? Yes. Does your dad take good care of you? Yes. Does he ever yell at you or hurt you? Ellie's face scrunched up in confusion. No. Daddy doesn't yell. And you're not afraid of him? No. Ellie looked at Dear Eric again, her expression worried now, like she was afraid she'd said something wrong. You're doing great, Elle, Dear Eric said softly. Linda smiled. Thank you, Ellie. You've been very helpful. She turned to Derek. I'd like to speak with some other people. Ellie's teacher, your neighbor, her doctor. Can you provide those contacts? Absolutely. Dear Eric gave her everything. Names, phone numbers, addresses. Linda packed up her clipboard and stood. I'll follow up with these references and submit my report to the court. If everything checks out, and for what I've seen today, this case will be closed. Dear Eric felt the knot in his chest loosen slightly. Thank you. Linda paused at the door. For what it's worth, Mr. Wyatt, I've done this job for a long time. I can tell when a child is scared or neglected. Your daughter is neither. She's happy. She's healthy. She loves you. Whatever's happening with the person who filed this report, don't let it distract you from that. After she left, Dear Eric sat on the couch with Ellie curled up next to him. His hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline finally leaving his system. Did I say the right things, Daddy? You said perfect things. You told the truth. Why was she here? Derek considered lying, then decided against it. Ellie was smart. She deserved honesty. Grandma told some people that I wasn't taking good care of you. The lady came to check if that was true. Ellie's eyes went wide, but that's not true. You take really good care of me. I know. And now she knows, too. Ellie was quiet for a moment, then in a small voice. Why does Grandma hate us? Dear Eric's heart cracked. He pulled her closer. She doesn't hate us, sweetheart. She's angry. And when people are angry, sometimes they do things that hurt other people. Are you angry sometimes? But I never let it make me hurt you. That's the difference. 3 days later, Dana called with the update. CPS closed the case. Linda Morrison's report was glowing. She said you're an exemplary parent and that the allegations were baseless. Derek exhaled. Thank God. Better than that. This report will be submitted as evidence in the custody hearing. It's going to destroy Barbara's credibility. The full custody hearing was scheduled for Friday. Dererick spent the days leading up to it in a state of controlled focus. He reviewed his testimony with Dana. He prepared himself mentally for seeing Barbara again. He made sure Ellie was settled with Mrs. Chan for the day. Friday morning arrived cold and bright. Dererick put on his best suit, charcoal gray, crisp white shirt, navy tie. He looked at himself in the mirror and saw a man who'd been tested, pushed, and forced to fight for what mattered most. He was ready. The courtroom was fuller this time. Dererick sat at the respondents' table with Dana. Barbara sat with across the aisle, her face set in grim determination. The gallery had a few spectators, some court watchers, a reporter from the local paper. Judge Moreno entered and they all rose. Please be seated. We're here for the full custody hearing in the matter of Hutchkins versus Wyatt. Mr. Pruitt, call your first witness. Pruitt stood. The petitioner calls Barbara Hutchkins. Barbara took the stand, was sworn in, and sat with her hands folded primly in her lap. Mrs. Hutchkins, Pruitt began, can you describe your relationship with your granddaughter? I love Ellie very much, Barbara said, her voice wavering slightly. I've tried to be a presence in her life since my daughter passed. It's been difficult, but I've done my best. And what are your concerns regarding Mr. Wyatt's care of Ellie? He's overwhelmed. He works long hours. He's angry and unpredictable. I worry that Ellie isn't getting the attention and stability she needs. Dana was already shaking her head slightly, making notes. Can you give an example? Pruitt prompted. At a family dinner, he became hostile toward me for no reason. He made threats. He stormed out with Ellie. And I haven't been allowed to see her since. And why do you believe you're better suited to care for Ellie? I have time. I have experience. I raised my own daughter successfully. I can give Ellie the love and structure she deserves. Pruitt nodded. No further questions. Judge Moreno looked at Dana. Cross-examination. Dana stood holding a folder. Mrs. Hutchins, you testified that you've tried to be a presence in Ellie's life. Is that accurate? Yes. And yet, over the past 3 years, how many times have you visited Ellie outside of those family dinners? Barbara hesitated. Well, it's difficult. I don't drive much. How many times? I am not sure. Let me help you. According to Mr. Wyatt's records, you visited Ellie's home exactly twice in 3 years. Does that sound right? Barbara's face tightened. I suppose. And during those weekly dinners, did you ever bring Ellie a gift? Take her out for ice cream. Ask about her interests. We talked. Did you? Silence. Dana flipped the page. Mrs. Hutchkins, at the dinner on November 10th, you made a comment about Ellie. Do you remember what you said? I don't recall exactly. You said, and I quote, she's not as pretty as her cousins. Some kids are just disappointments. Do you remember that? Barbara went pale. It was taken out of context. What context makes it acceptable to call an 8-year-old child a disappointment? I was trying to motivate her by insulting her. I didn't mean Mrs. Hutchkins. Dana said, her voice sharp. You claim to love Ellie. But you visited her twice in 3 years. You've never attended a school event. You've never called to ask how she's doing. And when you do see her, you insult her. Is that your definition of love? That's not fair. No further questions. Barbara left the stand looking shaken. Pruitt called no other witnesses. He didn't have any. Dana, on the other hand, called 4. First, Mrs. Patterson, Ellie's teacher. She testified that Derek was involved, attended every parent-teacher conference, volunteered for field trips, and that Ellie was thriving academically and socially. Second, Dr. Ramirez, Ellie's pediatrician. He testified that Ellie was healthy, up to date on all vaccinations, and showed no signs of neglect or abuse. Third, Mrs. Chun, the neighbor, she testified that Derek was attentive, that Ellie was well cared for, and that she never witnessed any concerning behavior. Fourth, Linda Morrison, the CPS caseworker. She testified that her investigation found no merit to Barbara's allegations and that Dererick's home was safe and appropriate. When the witnesses were done, Judge Moreno looked at Barbara. Mrs. Hutchkins, do you have anything else to present? Pruitt stood. Your Honor, we'd like to call one more witness. Carol Jennings, Mrs. Hutchkins's neighbor. Dana frowned. This wasn't in the pretrial disclosure. A woman in her 60s walked to the stand nervous and fidgeting. She was sworn in. Mrs. Jennings, Pruitt said, you live next door to Mrs. Hutchkins, correct? Yes. Have you had occasion to observe Mr. Wyatt's behavior? Well, I saw him once at his house. He was in the yard. He was shouting. Derek felt his stomach clench. Dana was already on her feet. Objection, Your Honor. This witness was not disclosed prior to trial. I'll allow it. Judge Moreno said, but make it quick, Mr. Pruitt. Mrs. Jennings, what was Mr. Wyatt shouting about? I couldn't hear exactly, but he was very loud, very aggressive. Derek leaned over to Dana. I know what she's talking about. There was a raccoon in my trash can. I was yelling at it. Dana's eyes lit up. Your Honor, may I cross-examine? Proceed. Dana pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, and projected a video onto the courtroom screen. Mrs. Jennings, is this the incident you're referring to? The video showed Derek's front yard. The timestamp was from 2 weeks ago. On screen, Derek appeared, saw something in his garbage can, and yelled, "Get out of there." Go on. Get. Then, clear as day, a raccoon scrambled out of the can, and waddled away. The courtroom erupted in quiet laughter. Even Judge Moreno smiled. Mrs. Jennings. Dana said he was yelling at a raccoon, wasn't he? Carol's face went bright red. I suppose so. I didn't see that part. No further questions. Dana sat down and Derek saw the faintest hint of a smile on her face. Judge Moreno looked at both attorneys. Closing statements. Pruitt went first, making a half-hearted argument about Barbara's good intentions. It fell flat. Dana stood calm and confident. Your Honor, the evidence is clear. Mr. Wyatt is a dedicated, responsible father. He has provided for Ellie financially, emotionally, and physically. He has witnesses who attest to his character. He has documentation showing his stability. Mrs. Hutchins, on the other hand, has provided nothing but unfounded allegations and attempts to manipulate this court. She called her own granddaughter a disappointment. She filed false reports with CPS. She has no credible evidence to support her petition. We ask that the court deny her request and grant Mr. Wyatt full custody. Judge Moreno reviewed her notes for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she looked up. I've heard enough. Based on the evidence presented, I find no grounds to remove Ellie from her father's care. Mr. Wyatt has demonstrated himself to be a fit and capable parent. Mrs. Hutchins has failed to prove otherwise. Therefore, I'm ruling as follows. Full custody remains with Derek Wyatt. Mrs. Hutchins is granted supervised visitation only contingent on her completing parenting classes and demonstrating consistent respectful behavior toward both Mr. Wyatt and Ellie. Additionally, Mrs. Hutchins is responsible for all her own financial obligations going forward. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Derek felt something release in his chest. Relief so profound it left him lightheaded. Across the aisle, Barbara sat frozen. Her face a mask of fury and disbelief. Pruitt was packing up his briefcase, clearly eager to be done with the case. Outside the courtroom, Dana shook Derek's hand. Congratulations. You won. Thank you for everything. You did the work, she said. You kept records. You stayed calm. You protected your daughter. That's what won this case. Derek drove home in a daze. He picked Ellie up from Mrs. Chen's house and they went home together. That evening, Derek and Ellie sat in the backyard. He'd strung up some lights a few months ago, little white bulbs that made the space feel cozy and safe. The air was warm, carrying the scent of cut grass and the faint hum of crickets. Ellie was curled up in a lawn chair, her stuffed rabbit in her lap. Derek sat beside her, feeling the tension of the past months finally beginning to ebb. Daddy, Ellie said quietly. Yes, sweetheart. Is Grandma still mad? Derek thought about how to answer. He could lie, tell her it would all be fine eventually, but Ellie deserved better than that. Probably, he said. She made choices that hurt people. And now she has to deal with the consequences of those choices. Will we ever see her again? Only if she changes. And even then, only if you want to. Ellie was quiet for a moment. Then she asked, Are we okay? Derek reached over and took her small hand in his. We're more than okay, Elle, we're free. She leaned against his shoulder, and they sat like that for a long time, watching the lights twinkle against the darkening sky. Derek didn't forgive Barbara. He wouldn't. Forgiveness required remorse, and Barbara had shown none. She tried to destroy him, tried to take his daughter, all because her pride had been wounded. But he protected what mattered. He'd drawn a line, held it, and won. And for the first time in 3 years since Leah died and left him holding all the pieces, Derek felt like they were finally whole again. Their family, small, imperfect, but theirs was safe. And that was enough.